Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Gina Roberts, and I am the Voter Education Director for the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. We are the sponsor of this event tonight, along in partnership with the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership. And today we have a great event for you all. It is Meet the Candidates, where you will have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates that are asking for your vote for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. On the November 8th ballot, there are 5 seats that are open in Maricopa County, and early voting has actually already begun. Yesterday was the start. So in Maricopa County, about 1.9 million ballots were sent out in the mail. So if you are an early voter, you should receive yours within the next few days, or you can go vote early in person, or of course you can turn out on election day. Just a few reminders for voting. If you vote in person, please bring your ID. If you are one of those early voters, please remember to sign the early ballot affidavit envelope. That is very important because that is how we confirm your identity and we make sure that your vote gets counted. So to kick things off this evening, we will be hearing first from Lisa Atkins. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Lisa it has such an accomplished resume, history, CV here, and I feel like she needs no introduction, but we will do so anyways. Lisa will give some information about the Central Arizona Project, what it means to be a board member, what the roles and responsibilities are. And after we hear from Lisa, we will turn things over to Gary Grado, who I will come back on and introduce, and he will facilitate the discussion with the candidates. So a little bit of background about Lisa. She is immediate past president of CAP, a board member. She's served for several years now. And Lisa has actually served on various commissions throughout her prestigious career, ranging from the Commission on the Arizona Environment to the Governor's Military Facilities Task Force and so on. And Lisa also served with Bob Stump, with U.S. Congressman Bob Stump for more than 25 years, and she was also his chief of staff. So again, Lisa has such a very accomplished history, and we couldn't be more excited and thrilled to open this discussion with her knowledge about water and CAP and the role of board members. So we thought we would set the stage for you, the voters, before we go into hearing from the candidates. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us, and I will turn things over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to the people who make the decision about who is serving on the board. The Central Arizona Project has been delivering water to Maricopa, Pinal, and Pima counties, and it's the result of planning for our future in the early part of the 20th century. We share the Colorado River Basin with California and Nevada and Upper Basin states. And the ability to take water off the Colorado River for Central Arizona for the 3 county areas serves more than 5 million people, or about 80% of the state's population. The CAP carries water through a 336-mile long system of aqueducts and tunnels and pumping plants and pipelines that starts at Havasu and goes all the way down to the southern boundary of the Santa Vera Indian Reservation southwest of Tucson. The very first board was convened in 1971 as part of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, or we refer to it as the CAWCD, and it's the governing entity of the Central Arizona Project. The board of directors is elected popularly by voters in our 3 county service area, which would be Maricopa, Pinal, and Pima counties. And there are 15 board members who serve unpaid, staggered 6-year terms. 10 of the board members are from Maricopa County, 4 from Pima County, and 1 from Pinal County. This year, 5 of the Maricopa County seats are up for election. Every 2-year election cycle, a third of the board is up for election or re-election. The sole purpose of the board is to provide policy and strategic direction for the Central Arizona Project, as well as levy 2 property taxes. So anyone who owns property and lives in the 3 county service area pays a property tax. The board is responsible for approving the budget for the organization, the entire Central Arizona Project organization, as well as any individual expenditures over $300,000. The board meets once a month for a full board meeting at 10 a.m. And then a second time during the month, our committees meet, which include the Finance, Audit, and Power Committee and the CAGRD and Underground Storage. Our meetings are open to the public. We have a robust public policy discussion prior to the board meetings once a month. And we appreciate the fact that the public has an opportunity not only to listen to, but to participate. We are subject to the open meeting law as other boards and commissions are. And it's a delight for me to be able to listen to the folks who are seeking your support for their either re-election to the board or to fill 3 seats on the board. I think you're going to be absolutely pleased with hearing their perspectives about one of the most important issues in the state of Arizona today. Just as to set a context, we had ASU do an economic impact study of the Central Arizona project, and it is a huge part of the state's economy and serves a large number of people in the very heart of Central Arizona. We work closely with our contract holders, but we appreciate the fact when the public understands that they are getting a benefit from this federal reclamation project, but they're also contributing to its repayment through a property tax if you live in Pima, Pinal, or Maricopa County. And with that, I'd like to thank both organizations for making this possible, and thank the candidates for their interest in the CAP board and wish them all the luck in the election. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa, for that overview. And to our audience members, we do have closed captions available, enabled on the Zoom feature. So if you'd like, you are welcome to go ahead and turn that on if you find that helpful. And so now I would like to introduce Gary Grado, who will be facilitating the portion where we discuss and hear from the candidates. Gary has been a longtime journalist since the early 90s. He is currently the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, which is the premier source for information regarding politics down at the Capitol and policy issues. And he's been a Valley resident, again, since the 90s, and he is received numerous awards. He is very accomplished. We are very grateful to have Gary here to moderate this event. And I'll leave you with the fact that Gary apparently is a Broncos fan. So, do with that what you will. But Gary, thank you so much for joining us. I'll turn it over to you to explain the format of how we'll hear from the candidates this evening. And when Gary has wrapped up the event with the candidates, I will come back on and share a few closing remarks with you all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gina, and good evening. I'm Gary Grado, the executive editor of the Capital Times. And as Gina said, we're the state's #1 source of coverage of state politics, government, and public policy. And before we begin, I'd just like to explain how we're going to proceed tonight. First of all, this is not a debate. So you're not going to see the usual things that you see with debates, like opening statements and rebuttals and that sort of stuff. This is simply an opportunity for voters to get acquainted with these candidates who are vying for 5 seats on the CAWCD board. Now, there are 14 candidates, and we invited each one, and tonight we have 11 in-house with us, and 3 others have opted to provide short video statements, which you'll get to see at the end. And we are taking candidates in alphabetical order, and each person will get approximately 5 minutes. In that time, they'll tell us a little bit about themselves, and then I'll ask them 1 to 2 questions from a list of prepared questions. So you'll hear the questions repeated, but no single question will be asked of every candidate. So I'm just going to be pulling from a list kind of randomly. And so without further ado, I'd like to call on our first candidate from the A's, Elena Aguilar.
Good evening. And
good evening, Elena. How are you tonight?
I'm well. How are you?
Great, thanks. So can you just start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, and then I've got a question or 2 for you.
Sure. First of all, I wanted to thank Flynn Foundation and Clean Elections Committee for putting this together. We know how important the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board is. My name, again, is Elena Aguilar, and I, in 2016, voted for the first time and for myself. So formally undocumented, was able to win my election. Currently serving my second term in the Osborne School District. It has been the honor of my life to serve the students, families, and community members of the Osborne School District, where I have had the experience as board president to close schools and reopen them. So I do come with crisis management experience, and I've had to work across party lines to ensure the safety of all of our staff and our community. And my children are now graduated out of the school district, and my oldest son attends NAU studying environmental science and sustainability, and my youngest is a student in the IB program at North. And in my professional role, I work for Source Global, a company that produces a technology device that creates water from sunlight and air. And I have the honor of working with tribal communities, Navajo Nation, Apache White Mountain, Apache San Carlos. I work with the colonias, which are the unincorporated areas along the US-Mexico border, which, similar to tribal communities, they lack access to clean drinking water, and sometimes the infrastructure to running water. And they also lack the access to electricity at times, similar to tribal communities. So I also have the opportunity to work with rural communities who are living off of wells. So I have traveled the state extensively and have learned about the drought resilient communities that are impacted. And we know that with aridification, things are only going to get worse. I have thought about what are the opportunities serving on this board. And besides bringing my experience as a current elected and a current person who has management and operations experience, I want to also think about, since the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board delivers water to agriculture, tribal communities, and cities and municipalities, agriculture being one of the most important sections or sectors, because they are the ones who receive up to 70% of the water that's delivered to them. And we know that agriculture and farming, if they are impacted with additional reductions as we move towards 2023, there'll be we'll be in tier 3 and there'll be additional reductions. We need to reimagine agriculture in the light of the water limitations, thinking about existing water technologies to leverage and attract entities to come to our state to create industry and jobs. But we know that we rely on them for subsistence, and if they are reduced and people lose jobs and the food prices go up, that is going to really impact not only our state, but our nation. And we also know that these reductions are going to happen, and there are short-term and long-term solutions, short-term being reuse, conservation, long-term being augmentation, desalination. And I know that my ancestors are the ones who created the irrigation systems, the canal systems, aqueducts. And we know that with modern science and technology, this is how CAP was born. And it was created through like civil engineers and modern science. And we know that we can move towards that direction to ensure that we are protecting the Colorado River and that we secure water for all Arizonans. And that's why I'm running, to ensure that we secure water for all Arizonans. Thank you.
So the CAWCD has several responsibilities. Which do you see as the most important responsibility? And you got about a minute and a half.
Well, the delivery of the water to the 3 areas that I mentioned, which is tribal municipalities and agriculture, and ensuring that the water rates, if there is going to be an increase in water rates, that those are happening, and managing, ensuring that we repay back the money that was borrowed in order to construct the CAP system. So just that is the most important role, is paying back the money and ensuring the delivery of the water, and setting the rates, equitable rates.
All right. Well, thank you, Elena. And the time goes fast. So
Gary.
just a little bit of warning to everybody that it goes really quickly. And so the next one up is Alexandra Arboleta.
Well, good evening.
Good evening. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good. Now you're an incumbent, and but can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll have a question or two for you as well.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'd also like to thank Clean Elections and the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership for hosting this. I think it's really important to get the message out to the voters so they can make educated decisions. Water is critical to our future, and so it's really important that we have qualified and thoughtful candidates elected to this board. So as you said, I'm an incumbent. I ran in 2016 and for the first time, and so I've been serving on the board for 6 years. I'm currently serving as secretary of the board, so I'm on the leadership team. And I am also commissioner of the Arizona Water Banking Authority. And then I serve as the chair of the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District and Underground Storage Committee. So I believe that we are facing unprecedented challenges on the Colorado River system. We're in a 22-year-long drought, but it looks like the longest drought in 1,200 years is what I'm hearing. And we're also facing over allocation on the river. So this is really an existential crisis for CAP. And so I think it's very important that we have thoughtful, experienced leaders who are willing to work hard to find solutions to protect the Colorado River and to provide sustainable, resilient supplies for our families and our future. I grew up in Arizona, and I think I'm uniquely qualified. I'm an experienced leader and a fiscally sound policy advocate. I'm uniquely qualified because I'm a water and natural resources attorney in my full-time day job. And I've been doing that for a couple of decades. So I have some expertise in the subject area that I can bring to my service. I received a BA from Stanford, a JD from University of Arizona, and then I continued my education. I was a 2018 fellow with the Flynn Brown Civic Leadership Academy and got to work with some really incredible people learning about Arizona policy. And then in 2022, I earned the public leadership credential from the Harvard Kennedy School. And it took about 1.5 years, and it was 6 courses on policymaking, decision-making, and leadership. I also have a lot of experience. One of the things I worked on the board is diversification of our energy portfolio. So in 2019, when the Navajo generating station closed, we really had to figure out where we were going to get our energy supplies. We get some from Hoover Dam, some hydroelectric power, but it created an opportunity for us to diversify our portfolio and include some renewable energy and solar resources. I also worked on something called the System Use Agreement, which will allow us to wheel water we call it non-project water, but non-CAP supplies through the canal. So as we see reductions in the amount of water going through the canal, we can augment it with other supplies. And one of the challenges there was developing water quality standards for that non-project water so that we could limit the impacts on the water treatment plants that are receiving the water. And I got a lot of stakeholders together. There was not a lot of agreement on how to do this. And I think we were successful in ultimately approving a water quality guidance document.
Let me ask you just one real quick question, because we got about 30 seconds left.
Okay.
What do you see are the short-term solutions to our water crisis, and what are the long-term solutions? I know that's short amount of time to get into all that, but you can just give us the thumbnail.
That is a great question. And I think people ask all the time because there are solutions. I think in the short term, we have to do more conservation across all the sectors. But really, we need to reduce our water uses 2 to 4 million acre feet off of the river. And so this is going to take negotiations with the other states on how to do that. And we have to work with agriculture to find a way to achieve more system conservation. And I believe we need to share equitably in the evaporation and system losses between the different 7 basin states in Mexico. Long-term solutions, I think, we need to consider responsible desalination, where we limit environmental impacts, and augmenting our supplies and doing water exchanges. But I also think there's some midterm solutions in the middle there, and that's water reuse. We can reuse a lot more of our water, and increasing storage, for example, raising Bartlett Dam and increasing storage on the Verde River system, and also looking at new technologies that improve irrigation efficiencies and improve efficiencies within our municipal and industrial sectors.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alexandra, and good luck in the race. And next up will be Lisa Bullington. She's here. I don't see. Don't think she's here.
Actually, Gary, I apologize for the interruption. If we could move on to the next candidate, and then we'll return to Lisa. We just have a few technical changes that we need to update. So please move on to the next candidate, and then we'll bring Lisa back on board.
Okay, so let's go with Alan Delaney.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Alan Delaney, and I am running for the CAWCD Board of Directors. Why? The Colorado River system has reached a tipping point. The current mega drought has given us river flows far below those upon which the existing allocation system is based. Arizona and Maricopa County in particular could lose substantial amounts of water delivered via the CAP canal due to our junior status on the Colorado River. We are already in a Tier 1 declared shortage, and soon in January, we will descend into a Tier 2A shortage. Worse could follow. Serious economic repercussions may well result as Arizona's sustainability is called into question. Expertise in water matters will be required to steer CAP through the coming years. The Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board needs members with an educational, regulatory, and technical background in water, plus the experience to put such knowledge to practical use in making the hard decisions that must be made to preserve the CAP system. Expertise counts. Trained as a hydrogeologist, I received my master's degree at NAU. I was the water policy administrator for the city of Peoria for over a decade. Leveraging my previous 9 years experience at the Department of Water Resources and the well permitting, recharge, and assured water supply programs brought several successes to Peoria. A big success was our withdrawal from the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District. Peoria is the only major city to have withdrawn as a member service area, thus avoiding the huge fee increases that I saw coming. In 2010, I led Peoria's effort to renew its designation of assured water supply, a success because I increased the total volume by over 1/3. When Hoover Dam hydroelectric power was reallocated to the Arizona Power Authority in 2015, I secured 691 kilowatts of capacity and 1.5 million kilowatt hours of usage. This significantly cut electrical bills at our newest wastewater treatment facility. So this is what I offer: education, 30+ years experience, and thus expertise. Maricopa County needs that expertise on the CAWCD Board of Directors to get through the tough times ahead. Again, my name is Alan Delaney, and I respectfully request your vote on November 8th. Thanks. And
thank you, Alan. So the question I have for you is, there's all these headlines right now about receding rivers and droughts and climate change. And, what do you tell the voters who are worried that it's going to, hit them at the tap? And what do you tell them that you and the board could do for that, so it doesn't hit them at the tap?
Well, we have to be real. It's hotter, it's drier. Soil moisture levels are declining, and I apologize for that. Oh, geez.
It wouldn't be a Zoom call without that.
Yeah, really. So, we're looking at variable precipitation levels. There's no way around the fact that the flows in the Colorado River are declining every year for the last 22 years. It is unfortunate, but we are now looking at a river that may yield only 6.6 million acre feet a year, according to a recent University of Colorado study. So yes, there will be some impacts in terms of municipal service to people who are residents of Maricopa County, but the cities have planned pretty well for that. They have wells that have been rehabilitated that serve as a backup source for water. They have been storing water underground for many years and are ready to recover that water and use that to deliver and replace some of the Colorado River water that we may lose. So I would tell them that their water supply is secure, but it's not going to be plentiful. We are going to have to learn to conserve. And it's interesting that CAWCD has water conservation in the name, and yet it's not a leader in promoting conservation across the valley. So I would tell people, yes, tough times are ahead, and we're going to have to really tighten our belts in terms of water usage. But we will not run out of water.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have a good night and good luck on your run there, Alan.
Thank you.
All right. And so up next, we have, I'm going to go ahead and go with Shelby Duplici.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Good evening. So if you just give us briefly, a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the board.
Absolutely. I have never planned on running for office and have always supported people behind the scenes. I have always been a strong believer that you can't complain unless you're ready to jump in and try to help. And so after moving here in the early 90s to go to ASU, I studied civil engineering at ASU and got my civil engineering degree and have been a civil engineer here in Arizona ever since. Decided not to go back home to Maine, where I came from. And my family started calling. We're all in the news here in Arizona, where we don't have water. We need to get out of Dodge. We need to sell. I need to come home to Maine. It's time. And I have 2 children. I'm a single mom, 19 and 23. And instead of getting overwhelmed with all of those news reports and everything that's been in the media, I chose to step into the race and make a difference. As an engineer and having been here in the Valley now 29 years, longer than any other time in my hometown in Maine, felt very passionate. I already serve on many boards and commissions and felt that it was time for me to step up and put my foot into the race and offer my professionalism and expertise to bring to the board and help to work collaboratively like I've done in my company. I was a businesswoman of the year for Phoenix Business Journal this year. I run a company as president and have the business knowledge as well as the engineering knowledge and would like to come in and work collaboratively with all stakeholders. I'm willing to listen, learn, and continue to learn and collaborate and find a solution. I agree a lot with the candidates we've already heard from tonight. We do have to be careful. We live in the desert and we have to conserve and be mindful of our water, but we've done a great job. We've been amazing water stewards. We have great management practices in place, and we just need to continue to grow on those and make changes now before it becomes a problem that we can't revert from. So thank you again for having me tonight and for your time.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to ask you a question I've already asked someone else, but so the CAWCD has several responsibilities, setting tax rates, and besides just making sure that the clients have water. So which do you see is the most important responsibility?
I think several of those, and I think like anything, there you have to balance all of those. I think education is very important. We need to be mindful and aware not only of what we've done as a state to manage our water, but we also need to be mindful of what's coming in the future. In addition, we need to manage the infrastructure. We owe a great debt back on the infrastructure that's been put in place. We need to pay that debt back, but at the same time, continue to maintain that infrastructure. Decreasing the water that goes in that canal will actually start to hinder and deteriorate the canal, not to mention the years and longevity of the canal. We need to continue to maintain that infrastructure. I think with my engineering background, I'll be able to help with both of those issues. And then we have to look at the supply. We have a shortage of supply up in Colorado. We've taken that junior status. Unfortunately, in that position, we've had the entire cut. I think we need to go back to renegotiate that. We need to consider the other states. The other states need to be considerate as well and take a portion of that cut. I don't think that we solve this problem independently. It needs to be a joint regional decision of all of the Western states, as well as not just one stakeholder in the state of Arizona, but all working together, both with the farmers. Not paying them to farm is ridiculous to me. Paying them to improve their infrastructure and to become more efficient with the watering mechanisms and approaches that they use, but at the same time, working with everyone from the federal, state, local, municipal, private sectors, tribal lands. We all need to come together and really button down and look at what we're doing and work together collaboratively. I believe that there's enough smart people in the room, in the state, so to speak, that can come together and find those solutions while we still manage all of that. And then the last, obviously, is cost and budget. As we see with inflation and cost of materials and maintenance going up, we need to find a way, whether it be through value engineering and just really tightening up our belt as we would with our own home budgets, to manage what we have and keeping our precious water intact.
And that's Shelby Duplici, folks. And thank you, Shelby, for coming on and being with us tonight and helping to inform the voters. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So we'll go back in the alphabet here real quick. I see that Lisa Bullington's on now. Lisa, can you come on the screen? There you are.
I'm on. Thanks, Gary.
Good evening. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. So, I ask everybody to tell a little bit about themselves, but if you could include, one of the questions that I had that I really haven't had a chance to ask anybody because they seem to include it in their questions is, tell us about, what life skills and experiences you bring to serving on the board.
Okay.
As well as just talking about yourself.
Great. Okay. I appreciate that. Well, thank you for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity to hear from all the candidates. It seems like it's a fantastic group of people that are very bright. But my name is Lisa Bullington. I've lived in Arizona for 50 years. As a kid, I used to go to Lake Powell many times, hike the Grand Canyon many times since I was 5 years old. And I just love Arizona. I've raised my family here. I have 5 children, ages 16 to 26. And I'm just proud to be Arizona resident, and I just love our great state. And it's no surprise with everything happening in the world that so many people are moving to Arizona. I'm a real estate attorney, and through my work in real estate and development and just working on different projects, water has been a critical issue. And so I think from my background of living here for so long and understanding, that the Colorado River is a resource that, is so important for our state and for the growth. But then in my work, seeing like how you deal with getting water for a new project. And I had one project where we weren't going to be able to get the right amount of water. So we had to pivot and completely redesign what we were going to do. So I'm intrigued by the complexity of all that. You've got the different stakeholders and all the different laws and how it's all coming together. And I think there are so many smart people here that can help figure out the problems. And so I was interested to run and be a part of it. I think I've been I'm a good collaborative thinker and good at working with different people. So I think I'd be an asset in that. I would be thoughtful and, listen to all the stakeholders, because every stakeholder is important and has important needs that need to be considered. And I know it's a difficult job, but I'm excited to have the opportunity to possibly be a part of it and work with the different groups. And so that's why I'm here today. But I just think my background, loving our state and working in complicated real estate deals, I have a good skill set that would be an asset.
Thank you, Lisa. So you got about 2 minutes left. And so what are the most significant problems facing the Central Arizona project?
Well, I'd say probably one of the most significant problems is the overallocation. That, when they just figured out they had to allocate the water, it was a year in the 70s where there was, a lot of rainfall and things have changed and we're in this drought and there's not enough water. And I think it's a problem because Arizona, we have our allocation and we've been so proactive in managing water and leaving water up in Lake Mead. And I'm just proud of our state and proud of the water leaders that have done such a great job going forward. But I think part of this role is really fighting for Arizona. And, we've got to get all the 7 states together to work, to figure this out, because if Lake Mead hits, dire levels, it affects everybody. So I think that's the overallocation is a significant problem. I'd say another serious problem is having, I know that a lot of our water, our infrastructure is old. And that's hard because we look and we hear great things about Israel and their desalinization and what they're doing. And they're the front runners in the whole world. And I know some people from the CAP board have gone there and learned so much. But I've heard that because some of our pipes leak and we have problems, that if we go and, build a desalinization plant, it's a problem when you've got old infrastructure. So I think it's such a huge challenge. We want to be forward thinking and improve our technology, but yet we've got to preserve and maintain the infrastructure that we have before us. So I'd say those are two of the issues that I think are a challenge and that need to be, and that are being addressed going forward.
All right, Lisa. Well, thank you very much. You hit the mark perfectly. And,
great.
Good luck on your campaign, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
And next up, we have Benjamin Graf.
Thank you, Gary.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, so go ahead and, introduce yourself to the voters and, let them know why you're running for the board or why you're running again for the board. Because
I'd be happy to. Thank you. And yes, thank you for pointing out that this would be my re-election. So I'll get into that in a moment. But thank you to Clean Elections and thank you to Flynn Brown and the Leadership Academy for putting this together. If any of you watching ever want an amazing opportunity in leadership training, I was lucky enough to be a part of the very first inaugural class of the Flynn Brown Leadership Academy, and it's an amazing experience. So thank you for that and for the planning for tonight. Again, Ben Graf, running for re-election to the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. You have to ask yourself, after doing this for 6 years in a volunteer election position in the middle of the biggest drought, why do it again? I had the passion before, and it's only been more and more ingrained into me just how important this position is to Arizona's future. A lot of issues out there in the election right now, but I can't think of a more important one than our secured water source. I'm an Arizona native, born and raised in the desert. I'm married. I have 2 young daughters, and I think about all the time that I want them to be able to choose to live in Arizona in the future without being concerned about our water sources. And that's a lot of the motivation behind me. I'm one of only 2 candidates before you tonight. Alex, of course, being the other that is an incumbent, and comes with that the 6 years of experience of serving on the board and working through issues like the drought contingency plan, and also co-chairing along with Lisa Atkins, who's here tonight, what we called our customer service task force, which was really focused on outreach to our tribal communities, to our customers, to our municipalities, industrial users, to improve the communication as we go through this drought, because we are the wholesaler and server of water to just so many important taxpayers and stakeholders as well. We have to talk about what's at stake. Both Lake Mead and Lake Powell is below 25% capacity. If we get below the ability to push water over Glen Canyon Dam and Hoover Dam, it's not only our water source, but if the water stops going over the dam, we stop seeing water flow on the Colorado River. That is how dire and important this discussion is. We have got to work together. We have got to be, as a board, the motivators along with ADWR and the governor's office to push for compromises with the lower basin and all basin states. One of the ironies here is the first thing we need to do to bring more water is to cut water. We have got to focus on the 2 to 4 million acre foot cut, and we have to motivate our federal government, if the states can't agree, to step in and work with us to make some very tough decisions. It's just so humbling to represent 80% of our population. I mean, it's a weird thing about this position. Next to the state of Arizona, the CAWCD actually represents and is the largest next representational government of Arizona residents, because we represent Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal County. I'll end before the question just to thank Maricopa County voters for putting me in this position 6 years ago. I'm asking you to do it again and entrust your water future with the leadership that I and the fellow board members I work with can bring. Thank you.
Now, being an incumbent, I'm sure you had a hand in the drought contingency plan. And from where I sit, that seems like a monumental task, with all those stakeholders. But things haven't been going so smooth this time around. So what strategy should CAP adopt to help bring all the basin states together, including California, to, protect the seeding waters?
Absolutely. The drought contingency plan, being at the forefront of it with my fellow board members, it's been miswritten about a few times or mischaracterized as what we thought as a board or as a state as the end all solution. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It was the appropriate next step, but the drought contingency plan was never designed to solve our drought problem. We would be in dire straits. We would be in a significantly worse problem. We wouldn't be at 25%. We could be at 10, 12% of the capacity without the drought contingency plan, which of course allowed for additional advanced cuts and even got California to agree to a cut in a tier 3 drought condition, which now we're moving into a tier 2A. So it's an incredibly important piece of legislation, piece of water policy, and it is the model for how we get the states together. In this case, moving forward, to get all of our states together at the table, I do believe we're going to need the assistance of the federal government. I think, unfortunately, we had a deadline of August 16th for Arizona, Nevada, and California to come together and say, here's how we cut 2 to 4 million acre feet. And our board led on the leadership, along with Ted Cook's leadership, to present that along with Nevada. We had a fairly simple plan that over half of that, 1.2 million acre feet, focused on how we just simply allocate and face the fact that we have an over allocation due to evaporation and system loss. And that was 1.2 million acre feet of savings right there. But California didn't come to the table. So to answer your question, Gary, I think we absolutely need to strive to have the federal government step in and help us. The federal government's delaying that. They have a lot of tough questions to ask, even about the authority to do so. But I, as a member of the board, would be supportive of the federal government coming in, and if not unilaterally, being a strong arm to help us get California back to the table.
All right. Well, that took you right to 5 minutes just as well. You nailed it just as well, and I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
it's good to meet you, and good luck there on your campaign, and
Thank you.
have a good evening.
You too. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks again. Bye. So next we're going to go with Amanda Monice. Good evening.
Hello, thank you. Good evening.
Evening. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and include, what skills and life experiences you bring to, serving on the board?
Yes, I want to say thank you for having me, and also greetings to everybody out there in the virtual space. Thanks for being with us to listen to what we have to say, because as many of the other candidates mentioned, this is probably the most important position that you maybe have never heard of. This impacts our everyday life, and it's important that we're all aware of the situation. I am a native Arizonan, and for the last 10 years, I've worked in education, and for the last 3, I've been working in an administrative role. Within that role, I oversee curriculum that impacts 2,000 students and over 20,000 families. In that position as well, I do project management. I also manage a budget, which also includes federal grants and money to have to be accounted for, and policy. So working within the confines of policy that's written for the state and for our district. So those are some personal pieces that I bring to the table. In addition to that, as an educator, a part of my entire profession has been predicated on being able to be a good communicator, taking very difficult information and being able to translate that so that other people can understand what the needs are, how to act, and how to be proactive about certain things. Because a lot of what we discuss is really detailed, technical, and hard to understand. So it needs to be translated so that everybody can understand what needs to be taken place for us to make sure that we have the water source that we need going forward. In running for this office, the reason why I've worked in education for the last 10 years is because I'm passionate about Arizona's future. I work in education, serving the community within our state, and this position is very familiar to that. This is serving our community, as mentioned by other candidates, over 80% of our state. And that's a large amount of people that need to be served. And without water, we don't have a state. We don't have a community here in the state. Within my position in running, I'm concerned about the board because I'm concerned that there are some that are influenced by outside interests. And in my campaign, I'm beholden to nobody. My campaign has been funded mostly by myself and my friends. And other people that I know, but I have no special interest behind me. And part of why I'm running is because in interpreting the cuts, I see that a lot of those go to our farmlands. And in conserving our farmlands is extremely important if we're talking about making sure our land is safe, making sure we're good stewards of the land, making sure that our temperature is adequate within our state. Having great farmland is a part of that and is a part of what defines us in Arizona. So I want to make sure that I fight for our agriculture, for them to be more efficient, to help them, as well as a big part of this board is really, as Lisa mentioned, the previous president, that a large part of this board is collecting taxes and setting water rates. This position was created because we are collecting and levying taxes, and it needs to be represented by taxpayers for the taxpayer. And I want to fight for our rights within the taxpaying community because we want to make sure that our money is being spent to our benefit to help us conserve that water as well as help to preserve our future here in Arizona.
So what do you see are the short-term solutions and the long-term solutions to our current water crisis?
Short-term solutions include looking at our water rates to be extremely effective in terms of making sure that people know what they're paying for and their usage. I know that some cities subsidize their water rates with their property taxes. I think this does our water usage a disservice because many people aren't paying for the water that they use. If you know how much you're spending and based on how much you use, you're a little bit more conservative about what you do. Think about our gas rates, right? I spend a lot on gas. I travel great distances to get from home to work to other places. And I have to be very mindful of where I go now because it's become an increased rate. And so I don't want to create any financial burdens, but it's important that our water rates reflect true market value. And I don't see that happening right now. So that's a short-term solution. The long-term solution includes fighting for a renegotiation of the Colorado River Compact. This compact was created over 100 years ago. A lot has changed since then, as well as Arizona has taken a brunt of the burden in making sure that the Colorado River water is protected. Within the state of Arizona, I know Ted Cook has mentioned recently that over the last 15 years, Arizona has been fundamental in preserving that water and even increasing it. I believe it was up to 37 feet in Lake Mead. So other states haven't contributed as much to this burden. And I think that we need to go back to the table to make sure Arizona's rights are fought for, other states step up, and that we have allocations that are more balanced among the basin states.
All right, Amanda. Well, thank you very much. And glad you can make it tonight and get to know the voters. And I think they know a little bit more about you now. So onward we go to, looks like Karen Peters, or I'm sorry, Jim Peterson.
Yes. It's spelled a funny way, Gary. It's spelled with a D, but it comes out Peterson. So
Peterson, okay.
my great grandparents didn't quite change it over when they came over in the boat, so I'm stuck with it.
Okay, well, sorry about that. And, you know, just let us know a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm a native Arizonan. I was born and raised in Casa Grande when it was about 900 people, primarily an agricultural community. Went down to the University of Arizona, where I received a bachelor's and a master's degree. And I came up to Phoenix and started a business. Now, I like to say that I've never lived more than 5 miles away from I-10 in my life. I know that sounds very dull, but it's the truth. And I've seen Arizona grow. And Roberta and I have 3 children. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last July.
Congratulations.
And I want to see, thank you very much. I want to see my generation, our generation, leave this world in a bit of a better place than our parents did. Now, I'm not sure that I can say that today. It's going to take a lot of work to catch up to our parents' generation. But water is a part of that. We're in a water crisis. And I think all of us have been asleep at the switch. I mean, it's not that this has all of a sudden come upon us. We've been, as referred earlier, we've been in a 20-year drought. And even going back further, we could see this coming. But again, what have we done about it? I think I can bring some unique skills to the board. I come from the business community. We build shopping centers. And those shopping centers, those projects, I'm very proud of. For environmental stewardship, for service to the neighborhoods and the communities that they serve. And what does it take to be successful in business, whatever business it is? It's bringing people together. And this is what we have to do if we're ever gonna think about solving our water problem in the state of Arizona. That means bringing all the agencies together. That means educating the public. I'm glad that all of a sudden water has hit the front pages of the newspaper recently, but where was it before that time? So we really have to mount a public information campaign concerning where we stand with water. I mean, we can talk about the various tiers, we can talk about the drought contingency plan, but I'd rather talk about solutions. We can measure the drop of the lakes. We can measure the flow of the river. We can predict exactly what's going to happen to the 3 counties that are serviced by the Central Arizona Project. 80% of our, how are we going to preserve that? Gary, if current conditions continue, you know, that water level within 1.5 years or 2 years is going to be below the pipes that transport the water to the dams. What does that mean? Does the Colorado River go dry? Is that an extreme position? Is that a doomsday prediction? Well, I'm not sure it is. I mean, if our drought continues, we could be facing down the barrel of a gun on that. And we need to come together to find those solutions. It involves conservation. It involves reforming some of the laws that have been with us for 100 years that really don't relate to the current situation that we have concerning water. And above all, it means protecting our state. Now, it was referenced before that in all the conversations we've had about cutbacks on the river, Arizona's burdened with the majority of those cuts. California, nothing. Now, the law is not on our side concerning that. This goes way back to when the Central Arizona Project was first conceived. To get that appropriation, we had to agree to a lesser priority in a drought year, okay? But nobody imagined back in the 60s and the 70s that we'd be facing the situation that we have today. So we have a complete change of conditions between that time and what we face today. Now, when I say the law is not on our side, you know, I've talked to a number of water attorneys, and as in most documents and most laws, there are gray areas, okay? Now, I'm not suggesting that we resort to litigation to protect Arizona's interest. Certainly, we can come together and figure out a solution among the basin states to this problem. But again, I think it's a primary responsibility of the board to protect Arizona's interest. So again, I think if we can come together, I like to think of this as a three-legged stool. You know, we have conservation, we have the reform of our laws, and we have protecting Arizona's interest in the Colorado River water. And if I'm elected, I invite you to really go to my website, electpeterson.com, for a more thorough discussion of what these solutions are. And I look forward to serving on this board. I think I can bring a unique perspective to it, and I would very much appreciate your vote.
All right, Jim. I don't have any time for any questions for you, but you know, I wish you the best of luck on the campaign, and you have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have Karen Peters. Good evening.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'll just dive right in, Gary.
Okay.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Karen Peters. I've lived in Arizona for 45 years. I live in Phoenix today with my husband, and we're the proud parents of 3 adult sons. I'm an Arizona lawyer and a city government executive. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a member of any political party. This office is nonpartisan for very good reasons. Mostly, the water is just essential for everyone, for quality of life and a thriving economy. The CAP brings Colorado River water to central Arizona and has allowed for tremendous economic growth since it began flowing in the 80s and 90s. One study, I believe it was the study that Lisa Atkins mentioned in her overview, estimated that the economic impact of the project is $2 trillion for our state. I'm running because right now Arizona faces unprecedented water supply challenges. I've been working around water issues in Arizona for over 30 years. Stormwater, groundwater, reclaimed water, you name it. But I never expected we'd be where we are today, at least during my career. The Colorado River, which supports 40 million people across the West, is over-allocated and depleted by historic drought made worse by climate change. These aren't temporary conditions, and some are out of our control. So Arizona has hard choices and work ahead, and CAWCD has a big role to play. Every sector, every state has to adapt rapidly. But in order to do that effectively, equitably, and with minimal economic disruption, all of us in the basin states have to work collectively in close collaboration with tribal governments and the federal government. In my career, I've worked not just on water, I've got extensive experience with energy issues, environmental issues, government finance, and water rate setting. I've helped write laws and regulations, and have worked with officials at every level of government, city, county, state, federal, tribal, all of them. I've brought diverse stakeholders together to solve tough problems. But most importantly, I really enjoy engaging with regular people who have questions about Arizona's water supply and what they can do to be part of the solution. My experiences and expertise are exactly what is needed now on the CAWCD board. For more, please take a look at my website, karenpeters.info, and please vote Karen Peters for CAWCD. Thanks so much.
Karen, you got about 2 minutes. So I got a question that I haven't asked anybody, and it not necessarily has to do with the board, but the board may, be involved in this at some point. So what investments should the Water Infrastructure and Finance Board make with the $1.2 billion water appropriation passed in this last session?
That is an excellent question. And I think it has to do with one of your other questions about short-term and long-term solutions. So the WIFA board was given new authority and a lot more money in last legislative session. As you said, $1.2 billion. 200 million of that is allocated for water conservation. And $1 billion is allocated to a number of other things, including water augmentation projects. So in my view, we have that pot of money that the WIFA board will administer, and they're going to take applications and evaluate those applications and parse out the dollars based on the merits of those applications. But if it were me on the WIFA board, my bias is toward permanent solutions. We have this $1.2 billion. We have $4 billion in the Federal Inflation Reduction Act that is allocated towards Western water solutions. And it's just imperative that we not squander the opportunity to use this money for permanent change. We need, as a region, to make permanent changes. You've heard the numbers of 2 to 4 million acre feet of reduction that need to happen on this system in order for it to be sustainable. So we can't use this money for short-term, one-year fixes. It has to be used for permanent, durable change. So that's what I would do with that one.
All right, Karen. Well, 5 minutes is up, and so I appreciate you coming on, and so I'm sure the voters do too. And good luck on your campaign, and have a good night. And next we have Barbara Seago.
Hi, sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
We pronounce it Ciego.
Ciego, okay.
Ciego
That
works too.
That was my next guest.
Yeah.
Thank you. So anyway, please tell the voters a little bit about yourself and what skills and life experiences you bring to the board.
All right. My name is Barbara Ciego, and I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I've got an electrical engineering degree from the University of Missouri-Rolla. I've gone into software engineering from that degree. I am married, have been married for over 30 years. I have 4 sons and 5 grandchildren. I'm running for this board. Well, last year I became a PC, a precinct committeeman, and someone came in and said we needed people to run, people who were unbiased, untied, unaffiliated with any special interest groups. And so I went ahead and decided that, yeah, okay, I guess I should step up, because if I don't, who's going to? We can't always rely on someone else to step up for things. So I decided to run, and just my goal is to make sure that the money that we get taxed is used appropriately. I have been on my HOA board for probably 5 or 6 terms. I was president during 2008 financial crisis. And I feel like at that point, my only agenda was to keep the rates the same. I didn't want to raise anything. They were trying to get us to raise to raise the dues. And at that point, I was like, we can't be doing that right now. People are hurting. And it's kind of the same situation now. We really need to use that money wisely and only use what we need, because people need their money right now. And so I think that a lot of what, we should be focusing on is paying off the debt and working on ways we can conserve the water. So we should be spending money on that. And of course, to maintain the canal, we need to focus on those things and make sure we're not subsidizing special groups with that money. That's not what it was intended for. And so I do worry about the water shortages, but I think if we would spend our money on better ways to conserve, especially with our farmers, that we would be much better off right now. We wouldn't have to stop supplying water to our farmers.
And what are the most significant problems facing the Central Arizona project right now?
The most significant problems, I guess I'm not really sure about what the significant, other than the water shortage, the fact that if the water gets too low, we're going to have problems with power. So there's a lot of different things that I see as big problems. But I feel like in my engineering background, I should be able to understand all the issues and make informed decisions.
All right. And, I'll throw the same question at you that I threw at the previous Karen, I'm sorry. And so what investments should the Water Infrastructure and Finance Board make with the $1.2 billion that is now the pot of money that's now out there for water projects?
Well, I know there's one thing of providing money to the farmers to convert their farms to use drip systems instead of the irrigation where a lot of the water is wasted. That would be one thing we could look at. And then I've heard some other things. I think maybe some studies into, I know we've already, desalinization is a big cost though, but it could be beneficial in certain areas. And there's even some rain harvesting and other things. I just think a lot of the money should be spent on like she said previously, long term. What can we do in the long term to fix our problems? We need to really study the possible solutions, all the solutions, not just ones that make some group some money, which that's a lot of times the case these days, but ones that are really cost effective and really make a difference to everyone here in Arizona.
All right, Barbara. Well, I appreciate your answers, and I'm going to wish you luck on your campaign. And thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. You too.
And now we've reached the W's. Daniel Cirinani Wood.
Yep. Yep. Good evening. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
All right. Thanks. Gary, Gina, and others, thank you for making it possible to have me here today. It's an honor. I really appreciate it. My name is Daniel Cirinani Wood. I'm an Arizona native, father of two. My eldest is a sophomore at ASU Polytech, and my younger one is a senior in high school. So concerning what we're here for today, I think that the number that needs to guide voters when they scribble circles on their ballots in the election this year is 1.3 trillion. A few people have mentioned 2 to 4 million acre feet. 4 million acre feet is 1.3 trillion gallons. That's the amount of gallons. That is how much water the federal government has ordered southwestern states to craft a plan to save in order to prevent dead pool at Lakes Mead and Lake Powell. Excuse me. Dead pool at Lake Mead is 895 feet. And what it means is that the water levels will be too low to push water through the canal and feed the lower Colorado River and supply canal water, which constitutes 40% of the water supply for 5.6 million residents of Central Arizona. This is an industrial scale problem, and it calls for industrial scale expertise, experience, and solutions. And I'm seeking election to this board because I believe it needs expertise in large scale industrial supply chain projects in order to have any hope of rising to the challenges that face us. So with respect to that, what I will bring to the board if elected is a long career in supply chain management, including many years at Intel and Altera corporations, where I participated in or led more than 20 industrial scale supply chain projects from design through construction and delivery, all the way to the current day with my current employer. I will also bring expertise to the board with respect to capacity management, theory of constraints, and yields, all of which we need to see ourselves through to the other side of this crisis. In addition to Intel and Altera, I served as a full-time lecturer at Arizona State University with the W.P. Carey School of Business for 2 years, and I wrote and published a technical text on supply chain management for J.P. Wiley & Sons, which was assisted by SAP Labs in Palo Alto. To get through this drought, to do our part, to get to 1.3 trillion gallons, we're going to need really big savings. So towards that, I advocate 2 things. The first is that we use CAP and CAWCD resources to raise $7 per month per household for 24 months, which will raise enough money for vouchers for Arizona farmers to convert to drip irrigation. Only 5% of Arizona farmers use drip irrigation compared to 48% in California and 100% in Israel. Drip irrigation can save us 680 billion gallons if we can make it there. It's the most powerful thing that we can do. Beyond that, I also advocate that we look more closely at evaporative prevention. Evaporative prevention is our Hoover Dam wonder of the world scale solution, and what it means is covering our reservoirs and canals. So before we consider foreign desalinization, and definitely before we consider like long canals to other rivers, Arizona and CAWCD need to post a request for proposals to private sector contractors for options to prevent evaporation on Lakes Mead and Lake Powell and the Cap Canal. This stands to generate as much as 200 billion gallons in water savings by just keeping the water that we already have and preventing it from evaporating. So these solutions can secure Arizona's future water supply and satisfy our share of water reductions, while also putting us in an excellent position to renegotiate come 2026.
All right, Daniel, thank you. And so, you know, as I mentioned before, the CAWCD has several responsibilities. So which is the most important one, do you think? And you got about 45 seconds.
Well, clearly just maintaining the canal that brings the water, it brings 40% of water to so much of the state. But beyond that, absolutely our groundwater replenishment responsibility is enormous and needs to be looked at very closely, particularly as we consider how good of a job are we doing it. Someone earlier also mentioned the educational role, and I think that's critical. I think that in order to build the political will to make the changes that we need to do more to educate the public.
All right, well, thank you very much. And that's the end of you're the last of our live candidates to speak tonight, and I appreciate everybody coming out. I feel like we're going to be in good hands no matter who gets elected, and you know, good luck to everybody. And I want to thank the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership for having me as the host, and the Clean Elections as well. So back to you, Gina.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you to our candidates. As Gary mentioned initially, there are 14 candidates total that are running. Unfortunately, 3 of them could not be here with us tonight. We do have 2 candidates that submitted videos for us with pre-recorded remarks that we'd like to play for you now. Those candidates are Corey Mishkin and Donovan Neese. And unfortunately, we don't have a video from Mr. Lundgren, who is also running. So if we could just go ahead and start with Corey Mishkin. Danielle, if you don't mind pulling up his video. These are about 2 minutes in length each, but we'll go ahead and play those for you now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corey Mishkin, and I'm running for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board. This is an important board that oversees water delivered from the Colorado River to your home. This board oversees water that's delivered to 80% of Arizona's population, from Maricopa County all the way down to Pima County. It's the largest taxing district in the entire state of Arizona, but it also oversees and has a seat at the table for some of the most important conversations in Arizona, which is water. Without water, we don't have anything else to argue about. And I want to make sure that we're not talking about just today's situation, but whoever's on this board is focused on the next 50 years and beyond. I want to make sure that my children can enjoy this valley the same way I did as a child, and that their children can choose to live here if they choose as well. It's important that we have people who understand what it takes to balance a budget, to run their own business, and hold our bureaucracy accountable to ensure that every dollar is spent wisely and that we stretch every dollar just like we stretch every drop of water. The reality is Arizona has really good water policy. When you open up your newspaper or you go on to the internet or that you listen to what's on TV or radio, you might think that we're running out of water. It's true, we took a 21% cut out of our Colorado River allocation. But the reality is Arizona's been focused and steadfast in their commitment to conserving water and making sure that this valley has what it needs in the long term. Over the last 30 years, we've put over 3 trillion gallons of water underground for storage, not for a rainy day, but for a day like today. We need to make sure that we're working with our stakeholders to know that we can meet this challenge with innovation. It isn't about the carrot and the stick. It's not about telling our fellow Arizonans what they can and can't do. It's about helping them know the solutions. I've met with farmers across the state who are doing more with less. I've met with people in city leadership that are doing more with less. But what we need on this board are people who will stand up to places like California, that will give our legislators the tools that they need so that they can change the narrative about Arizona not doing enough to conserve and how Arizona is doing more than its share to conserve. That Arizona is doing everything it can while other states like California take no cuts out of the Colorado River allocation. We need people who will stand on this board and take the fight to the other states to renegotiate this Colorado River Compact, to ensure that we all get what's fair. I don't mind being a good neighbor and cutting when I need to so that everybody has what they need. But we need our neighbors like California to share in those cuts. We need people on this board who will use the board as an opportunity to call out the hypocrisy of other states and ensure that you and all Arizonans have the water they need. My name is Corey Mishkin, and I'm running for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board.
Hello, my name is Donovan Neese, and I'm running for a seat on the Board of Directors for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, better known as CAP. The CAP is facing unprecedented times. Lake Mead has never been this low since they filled it in 1935. Shortages have been declared on the river. The Bureau of Reclamation has threatened to withhold 2 million acre-feet from allocations. Their general manager is retiring. And last year, California took their entire allocation plus an additional share. Water is a vital resource to Arizona's economy, and this is a critical election. I've spent my career steeping in Arizona's water. 20 years worth of technical service. I'm a registered civil engineer with a master's degree in business. My day job is running a water district where I advise a board of directors on policy, rates, and industrial trends. I have managed complex litigation, negotiated contracts, and improved efficiency. I also serve as treasurer of the Irrigation and Electrical Districts Association and am vice president of the Agribusiness and Water Council. Also, I'm a faculty teacher for the Water Management Certificate Program. Water and power is my regular 9-to-5 job. I need your help to use my strengths for the benefit of the taxpayers of Maricopa County. Technical expertise is important in this position. You need someone willing to wade through the reports, studies, and data to find the best solution to keep Arizona's economy running. I'm running with a group of technically minded folks that are ready to serve. Please vote Donovan Neese on November 8th for the CAWCD Board of Directors. Thank you.
All right, well, there you have it. Thank you, everybody. We've heard from all of our candidates this evening. We appreciate your participation. Thank you to Lisa, thank you to Gary, and of course, thank you to the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership as partnering this event with Clean Elections. Voters, again, early ballots have gone out in Maricopa County yesterday. About 1.9 million have gone out to the post office, so it'll take a few days to get to you. We hope that you have the information that you need to fill out your ballot confidently. When it comes to the Office of Central Arizona Water Conservation District. If you're looking for more information, you can see all of these candidates, their profiles, their contact information, along with other candidates on your ballot at the Clean Elections website, azcleanelections.gov. And you can also find information on how to get your ballot and when and where to vote. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.